Hello you guys, it is Lily. Welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, welcome to my channel. This is the video that you all have been waiting for, and the video that I have dreamed of filming. Let me just say that if you couldn't tell from the title, this story is not what I thought it would be, the outcome that I thought it would be, but there is a lot of good that came out of it, and I'm just gonna jump right into it. But before I do, I am not put together. This is real, this is raw. Did not even put makeup on. I haven't even changed out of my pajamas. We're here looking like this. This video is probably gonna be really long. I would suggest getting a snack, getting a drink, folding some laundry, doing something, listen to this like a podcast, because it's gonna be a hot second. I wrote down my birth story yesterday. It took me 2 hours to write it, and he was sleeping the whole time, so it wasn't like I was being interrupted. It's just a lot, but I'm proud of it, and I'm excited to share it with you guys. If you have been watching me for a while, or if you haven't been watching me for a while, I was planning on doing a home birth. Obviously, I had been visiting a midwife my whole pregnancy. My midwife is amazing. I love her, and throughout my whole pregnancy, she was just the best. She is like family to me now. My whole pregnancy was amazing because I felt so supported. I felt so encouraged. I felt so safe. I want to just start this by saying that, because I really believe that the reason why I'm not devastated by my circumstance and devastated by everything that happened is because of the people that were there with me during this, and that I just trusted them 100%. Let's get into it. My due date was December 14th, which is a Saturday. On December 7th, which was a Saturday, that was my 39 week. Like, I turned 39 weeks that day. I had a little nesting party, so it was like very late in my pregnancy, but it wasn't really a nesting party. It was more just like having my friends over to just help me with like last minute things, and then also just like pray over me, pray over the house and stuff like that. I had made like a little hot chocolate bar, and really all I had to do was put my little like midwife basket together. I bought them like snacks and drinks and stuff like that. I ended up getting my high chair, or his high chair. It also came with like a newborn seat, so I wanted to set that up. Like, I had like my friends go around and like dust the baseboards, random stuff like that. Put the car seat base in the car, which was very helpful, and I'm really glad that we did that, because as you'll come to find out, that was very helpful, because I originally wasn't even going to put it in there. I didn't anticipate we were going to need it for a long time, because I was going to give birth at home. So in my mind, I was like, well, I'll just set it up, you know, after he's born, when we want to go out for the first time. But good thing we had it set up before he came. Oh, and we made some padsicles too. But I went down to the basement and found a pipe was leaking, and there was water all over the floor in the basement. Now, our basement is like pretty much all finished except for this little part that is a like storage area. And so thankfully all the water was just on like the cement area, but there was boxes and stuff like that over there. So some of the boxes did get wet. This leak was just spraying everywhere, so it was our hot water hose, but it was like a mist, but it had been broken for like a couple hours or like overnight. I don't even know, because there was like a good amount of water on the floor. So I found that, and my husband was out because I had all my friends over, so I had my friends come downstairs, and I was like, guys, we have a problem. And so 2 of their husbands came and fixed it, which was amazing, and they brought a wet shop vac and like got all the water out of the basement, and I was so thankful for them, because that was just very stressful. But it was like perfect timing, honestly, that it was during my party that I found that, because honestly, if I would have found that by myself or with Jack and I together, I think we would have freaked out a little bit more. But the fact that my friends were there, it just kind of alleviated the stress because they just were like on it. That's random. That has nothing really to do with my birth or labor, but throughout this video also, I'm going to insert the clips that I filmed. I just filmed a few clips, but then my mother-in-law filmed my labor, but like 2 hours or something of footage of me laboring, but I'll just put in a couple clips. So I will insert those videos as well throughout this video. So yeah, that happened on December 7th. Before they left, they all prayed over me, and then my friend stayed and we prayed over the house together, which was really special. I felt so spiritually prepared at that point. They left, everyone left, and I was just thinking that I still had a lot of time left. It's, well, definitely at least a week. I went to bed and I woke up around like 1:30 to go pee, which isn't surprising. And then I woke up at like 5:30 and I don't know, my brain was just awake. I don't think I had to pee, but I did have I was having Braxton Hicks. And sometimes they would wake me up in the middle of the night, but it would only be because they would push on my bladder. And so when I would have a Braxton Hicks, I'd feel like I have to go pee. And so that was kind of the sensation that I had at 5:30 in the morning. I knew I had a Braxton Hicks, but they never really woke me up. At 5:30, I was kind of just awake, but I wasn't really noticing contractions or Braxton Hicks or whatever. And so I kind of went back to bed, but my brain was kind of on. And so by 7:30, I had another Braxton Hicks, but it was pretty intense. It kind of woke me up. And then after that, I kind of started noticing that they were pretty frequent. That kind of got me thinking. And it was Sunday, so December 8th. Sundays are always our days that we do nothing, which is funny that it happened on a Sunday because throughout the week I always, have so many things to get done. I always am very productive, and so it's hard for me to slow down. And so the fact that it was on a Sunday and that it's always the day that I don't do anything is kind of just God's way of just telling me today you have nothing to do but worry about being in labor. So because I feel if it was on a Monday or a Tuesday, I would want to clean the house, I would want to get things done and all that stuff, and I wouldn't be able to just sit and relax. And also Jack was home from work, obviously, because it's Sunday, so that was also really nice because I didn't have to call him to say come home or anything like that. So yeah, I was having contractions 10 minutes apart, but they just felt like Braxton Hicks contractions. They were a little bit more intense than Braxton Hicks, but they weren't painful by any means. Now, I will say throughout this whole experience that from up until the very end, that it was not painful. The contractions were not painful, but to some people, depending on how much research you do, how much preparation you do, you may think they are painful. But to me, I just knew what I was doing. I knew what my body was doing, and so I was not scared. And so to me, they weren't painful. They were just contractions. So I got up and we were going to go to church, but because I kept having them, I told Jack that I just didn't feel like we should go to church, because even if this isn't real, which I was thinking that it wasn't real, I was trying to tell myself that it wasn't real, I still don't think I could sit through service and have these Braxton Hicks contractions. And so I said, let's just stay home. Even if it's false labor, let's just stay home. And so I made breakfast, and I'll insert that clip right now. So this could be completely false alarm, or it could not be. I have no idea yet, but it is December. What day is it?
December 8th.
I think it is? Yep. December 8th? So it's December 8th. I turned 39 weeks yesterday. If you've been following along my pregnancy journey, I've been having Braxton Hicks for a long time, but it is Sunday. So my due date is in 6 days on the 14th of December. Last night, I slept pretty good for the most part. I woke up at 1:30 to go pee, and then I woke up at 5:30. My brain was just on. I couldn't go back to sleep for some reason, and I was like having Braxton Hicks, but they weren't like anything that I was like getting into my head about. Like, I think I just get Braxton Hicks in the middle of the night, and sometimes I don't even realize it, but it usually sometimes wakes me up because it makes me have to go pee. But that wasn't really why I woke up. It was more just like my brain was on. So then I finally like kind of fell back asleep, and then I woke up at like 7:30 with a really intense like Braxton Hicks contraction. Like, it was like, oh gosh. I got up and I had to go number 2. And I've had to do that 3 times this morning, which kind of makes me think that something's happening, because usually if you're having like bowel movements, sometimes that means things are happening. But I haven't had any mucus plug, haven't had like bloody show or anything like that. So it is now 9:30, so it's been about like 2 hours since I've started having these like really intense Braxton Hicks, I want to say. And we just had timed 2 of them, and they're a minute long, which is, I feel like all my Braxton Hicks are a minute long, but they've been 10 minutes apart. We're going to do like 4 of them in a row, see if I have 4 in a row, and if I do, we're gonna wait until like 11 or like 12 to even like tell my midwife or to even like say anything. This is like the last thing I want to do is get in my head, but if this is real, and if it would happen today / tomorrow, a couple of my prayers would be answered, because I wanted to start contractions or start early labor in the morning after a good night's sleep. And I feel like I pretty much got that. Yeah, I didn't start anything until 7:30 this morning. It's Sunday, so we have the whole day. The only thing is, it's a week before my due date, so Jack would have to take off like an extra week of work, which I think it will be fine, but that kind of sucks. This might be completely false labor. Who knows? I'm not trying to like get in my head, but I'm just gonna try to like rest today and just like go with the flow and just surrender and see what happens. But his mom is coming into town literally today, but she won't get here until like 5. I guess we'll see what happens with that. That would be hilarious though, if like the day that she comes he's born, but who knows? We have the whole day. But I've also been feeling like really crampy. Like, as I said, the Braxton Hicks are, whatever I'm having, are like really, at the peak of them are really, really intense. But I don't know. I haven't had one in, I don't know how long, a couple minutes. So I guess I'll just keep you updated. Just had another one. And I'm making pancakes. We were gonna go to church today, but obviously I don't want to be in church service, and if I'm having them every 10 minutes, sitting there and suffering. So yeah, it's been how many, like 4 now? I mean, that's only 4, but still. Yeah, just making pancakes. I'm feeling good in between, so it's definitely very early if anything is happening. So also, I gotta show you this. So yesterday during my nesting party, our hot water heater, this piece right here was spraying everywhere, and the whole floor was soaking wet. That thing was like filled to the brim with water. Thankfully, we don't have many like storage boxes and stuff like that, but I just realized if I am literally in labor, we used a bunch of towels to soak up the water, and I kind of want these towels. I have extra towels. Actually, I never showed you guys this in my video, but in my birth supplies kit, I have a bunch of towels, but I don't know how many I'll need, so I want to make sure that I can clean these towels. And Jack missed one because he was on the phone with his mom. So they've been very consistent since like 7:30. We didn't start timing until 9, but we'll see. And then I kind of just chilled at home. My mother-in-law was gonna come that day anyway, so she was gonna come for like a month to just wait for when he was born and stuff like that. And so we texted her at like 10 and told everyone, like our immediate family, that I was having contractions, but it could be false labor. And she was like, well, I'm coming right now. So she was supposed to get there like 5 p.m., but she ended up just leaving and not even going to church. And so she got to our house around 2. So she got there just a few hours earlier than when she expected to be there anyways. So I was just kind of laboring in the living room on the birth ball. I loved bouncing on that, being on all fours and just leaning on it, but the contractions were still 10 minutes apart, so they weren't bad at all. So she got there at 2 p.m. and she picked up lunch for us. So I ended up eating some lunch, which was really great. That was the last meal I had for like 24 hours. We had Mediterranean. Throughout lunch, I just had contractions every 10 minutes, was just breathing through them. And then after that, we watched some TV, just talked. And then around 4 p.m., my laundry was done, and so I decided I wanted to go fold my laundry. This is the last clip that I filmed on my phone, so I'll show you that. Okay, guys, so it is the same day. It is 4 o'clock. Give you a little update. Things have been pretty much the same since this morning. I have been having very consistent contractions all day since I talked to you last. They have not gotten closer together. I was timing them from about 9 a.m. to around 1, and then they started, we were watching a movie and I was bouncing on my ball. I was still having them, but they were kind of getting to be like 15 minutes apart. So I decided I was just gonna stop timing them. So I haven't timed them really since then, but I still have been having them very consistently. So I'm still in early labor for sure. This day has gone by so fast. It's already 4 and I'm like, dang it, it's already 4 o'clock. They've been really like all consuming when I have them. They're very, very intense. When I'm not obviously having one, I'm able to still be myself. I'm actually folding my laundry right now. I started my laundry because on Mondays I do my laundry, but today's Sunday, so I'm like, well, if I'm in labor all day tomorrow too, or if he's born, I want to at least have like my laundry basket empty. And then I did do that load of towels as well. I just folded those. They're definitely like intense, not Braxton Hicks. They don't feel like Braxton Hicks at all. They are definitely like, there's been a shift. My body feels like I'm on my period. Even when I'm not having a contraction, like right now, I just feel like I'm on my period. I'm very crampy all over my like lower back, and I'm not having back labor, I would say. I don't really know, but my back isn't like hurting super bad. It's more just like I feel a lot of just like pressure and stuff down there, and when I'm on my period, I feel that same like just crampiness, pressure. I've been having a lot of diarrhea, not a lot, but it's because there's a lot of pressure going on. It's been kind of pushing on my bowels. I'm just still trying to kind of act like I'm not in labor, or act like nothing's happening, because it could be a long time. So I am gonna fold my laundry and watch some YouTube. We've really just been chilling today. I have no idea what tonight is gonna look like. I mean, there's still a lot of day and night left. He's actually been moving a lot. He has been moving like all day today. So I think he knows something's going on. I'm feeling him move right now. So he's definitely working his way down. I think I'm about to have one. I haven't been too adamant about getting into specific positions. I've just been sitting on my ball when I'm having one, or wherever I am, just getting into like a low position while I'm folding my laundry. I've just been like leaning over my bed, or like have my knee up on my bed. Wherever I am, I usually just either get on the floor or lean on something and do my breaths. In for 4, out for 7. And the peak of the contraction is really, really intense, but it usually only lasts about 1 full breath. So like, if I can just get through this breath, or if I can just get through this peak, like, it will be okay. Having the intense contractions, you know, gets me nervous for what's to come, but it's definitely, once they're close together, it's gonna be like, I'm not gonna be able to talk. I'm gonna have to seclude and stuff like that, but I'm really gonna try to just rest right now as much as I can. I'm gonna fold this laundry, and then I think we're gonna watch a movie or something and just try to rest as much as possible, because I have no idea what this night is gonna look like. I have no idea if I'm gonna be up all night, but my midwife does know what's going on. She's in the loop. So since like the very first big contraction at like 7:30, it's been about like 8-ish hours, like 8.5 hours. So it's gone pretty fast. It's gone really fast, but just gonna take it easy. Also, I've been like feeling shaky. So that's also another reason why I feel like this could be the real thing, because when you're in early labor and in like transition, you can get really shaky because of your hormones and stuff like that. So I have been like feeling shaky. I've been trying to drink a lot of liquids. So this is electrolytes. I've been drinking this. I drank 2 cups of raspberry leaf tea. I've been drinking my water. So I'm really trying to like hydrate now. Haven't lost my mucus plug yet, or like nothing's really gone on down there. There hasn't been any bloody show or mucus or anything like that. Like I feel like I'm probably in early labor, but at the same time, like, because things haven't progressed, things haven't gotten closer together, and there hasn't been anything going on down there, I'm just telling myself like it's probably not going to be for a while. And if things even start to die down or wear off by tonight, it could be another week. It's so up in the air. It's so unpredictable. The thing about very low intervention birth is there's just like when you just let your body do it, it's so unpredictable. Who knows? Like, it literally could be a week from now that I give birth, or it could be like tonight or tomorrow, but we'll see. So anyway, I'm probably gonna have one here soon, because I've been talking for almost 10 minutes. So I'll let you guys know if anything else happens. So I folded my laundry, and then I ended up trying to take a nap, because I didn't know how long this would be, or if this was still even real. So I knew that napping and resting was really important in early labor, and I was still in early labor at this point. I had a peanut ball, and so I was kind of looking at some positions. I had this whole folder in my Instagram of early labor positions, you know, hip openers to get the baby to come down, all that stuff. Like, throughout the whole time of my like early labor and active labor, I was doing everything that I wanted to do. You know, I was getting in the correct positions to try to, you know, open my pelvis, to open the inlet, you know, all that stuff. I was just really focused. I was really excited. It was so exciting and fun to me, which sounds so weird. This is what I had been waiting for so long. For years, I had been planning for this day and waiting for this day, except I still kept telling myself that it wasn't real and that it was probably just false labor. But I guess it's better to be like that than keep thinking that it was real and that it could have been false. So it was not real until things started really progressing. And even then, I still didn't think it was real. Around 5 to 7, I just tried to like rest. I was listening to Christian hypnobirthing, which was amazing. I love that app, and I will probably use that any other births I have. There's meditations that you listen to. You can listen to scripture. She speaks scripture over you. She speaks Christian, like, godly affirmations over you. Like, there's a bunch of things that you can pick for her to speak over you. And so I was listening to that while I was trying to rest, and I was timing my contractions around 7. My contractions were like now 7 minutes apart, so a little bit closer and a little bit more intense. And so my husband and my mother-in-law were downstairs just watching TV, hanging out. And so I went back downstairs at 7, and my father-in-law was coming at 8. At 7, I was like, let's watch a movie. Let's watch a funny movie, because I wanted to get, you know, my endorphins going, my oxytocin going, which I was calm the whole time. I was not anxious at all. So, but I just wanted to like laugh, because that is very helpful in birth or in labor. And so I put on Christmas Vacation. I barely could even watch it. I was just not even like really focusing on it. So about around this time was when my brain kind of started shifting. I couldn't really focus on anything else. I don't even really remember a lot of like, I remember, but I don't remember, like, time felt so irrelevant. Time was just like moving so fast, but like it just didn't feel like I was even in time. Like it was just weird, because I remember this stuff, but I don't remember how long it was. I don't remember like my conversations, like anything like that. So around 8, when my father-in-law got there, I was really starting to have more intense contractions, and they started becoming now 5 minutes apart. And so I knew if they were about 5 minutes apart and pretty intense, I was in like early active or active labor. I didn't want to call my midwife until very like I knew for sure that I was in labor, because I did not want her to get here and be here for a long time, which is what ended up happening, but you'll see. I called her. I had a contraction while I was on the phone with her. Sometimes when he's sleeping, he cries, which is so sad. I had a contraction while I was on the phone with her. I told her what was going on, and Jack told her what was going on. And so she lives about 30 minutes away from me, and so she was like, I'm gonna get some tea and then I'll be on my way. So she didn't end up getting to my house until around like 9-ish, like 9:30-ish, something like that. And so Jack and I ended up going upstairs around like 8:30, like soon after his dad got there. And we got the room, like our bedroom, all like chill. We had music, worship music playing. We had our fake candles on. It was just very calm. And we were just hanging out together. I was still very like aware. I was still very in control. You know, they were way more intense and way more frequent, but a big prayer for my birth as well was that I did not want to be like mean to Jack or mean to anyone. I wanted to be in control of like what I was saying and what I was feeling. And so I just remember like really trying to be kind to Jack. I remember like there was a couple contractions where I didn't like what he was doing, and so afterwards I was like, yeah, that was good, but can you like not do this, or can you do this differently next time, or whatever. Like I was trying to be really kind, and I feel like I was, and I feel like he would say I was. There was like one contraction where I remember he was like doing counter pressure on my back, and he was shaking his leg, which is like one of my pet peeves that he does, is like shaking his leg. I just remember him doing that, and after the contraction I was like, that was good, but like can you just not shake your leg? Like that really made me like mad basically. Which he like took that fine. But anyway, around 9 is when my midwife got there, and I was so happy when she got there. I mean, she's just amazing, like I said, and she checked him. He was doing great, and she said he was really low, and she was like, wow, this is going great. And my contractions were around 5 to 3 minutes apart at that point. She told me that she still thought I was in early labor. She didn't check me. I didn't want to be checked for dilation really at all. And so she didn't check me. She was just checking him and just kind of seeing, like, kind of understanding where I was in my labor just by my movements, by my sounds, by my body language, all that kind of stuff. Oh, one thing. So I wanted to have a water birth, and so my midwife brings the tub, but I had to buy like the birth tub liner. And so she asked Jack on the phone to get the tub ready. Well, she got there and she was like, where's the tub? And we were like, you're supposed to bring it. You didn't bring it. And she usually gives her clients the tub prior to them going into labor, but I guess she just totally forgot to give me one and probably thought I had more time in my pregnancy. She didn't have one, and so my father-in-law met her husband in an area to go get it from him. And so she like really felt that I was progressing really fast and that everything was going really smooth. So she thought like we weren't even going to make it in time. Like I wasn't going to be able to get in the tub, and she was like, oh my gosh, I'm ruining her birth. Like, she wanted a water birth and now she's not going to have one. But he got back in time. He started filling up the pool, but her pump was running out of batteries. So then he had to go to the store and get batteries. I kind of knew what was going on, like, because I could hear it in the background, but I was so focused on my contractions that I was just kind of like, what's going on? And then at 11 o'clock, my assistant midwife came, and right as she walked into the bedroom, my water broke. So actually a little bit before my water broke, my mucus plug came out. That felt kind of weird. It felt like a little pop. It felt like a little like glob came out. And so my midwife checked, and she was like, oh, yep, that's the mucus plug in the bloody show. And then a few minutes later at 11 o'clock, my water broke, and it was a full-on gush. It was so awesome. I loved experiencing that naturally. It was on the bed though, which I was a little nervous about because I really wanted it in the tub, but you can't stop it. And so thankfully, of course, I had so much stuff. You know, I had so much birth prep. And so I had a waterproof mattress protector on my mattress. I had black sheets, and I had a bunch of like pads and stuff. Like, they put all that stuff on the bed and put pads and stuff to make sure there was no gross stuff that touched, you know, anything. Yeah, I don't even know what that looked like. I was in my zone, breathing the whole birth, the whole labor. I mean, I barely opened my eyes. My surroundings, like, I didn't even really see my surroundings a lot because I was just closing my eyes in my zone. But I knew that after my water broke would be, things would really start progressing. You know, once your water breaks, it's like go time. And so I told my midwife, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. Like, I was so nervous about my water breaking, but like, that was awesome, or something like that. I don't know. I said something like that, and she was like, what the heck? She was really freaking out because she didn't think the pool would be ready because my water broke. But I was still laboring. The contractions were getting more intense for sure, but I mean, like I said, I was just so in my zone that like it was just not painful to me in my head. It wasn't painful. I was just so focused. I was so relaxed. I was so not anxious, not stressed, because I just knew what was happening. I knew what was going on. And so around 12 a.m. was when the pool was finally ready, and I was definitely ready to get in. Also, another thing that felt really good while I was laboring was putting my heating pad on my back. He was posterior, which means he was sunny side up, which means his face and his body was looking towards my stomach, where babies should be turned head down, facing like your back, basically. Like, if I were to be cut open, you could see his face, whereas you should see the back of his head. I knew he was posterior for a couple weeks, and I had done everything to turn him. I mean, I was very educated, felt very educated on how to make sure the baby was in the perfect position, doing forward leaning inversions, a bunch of just different positions, but I thought he had turned, and he did not. But I do not really remember horrible back labor. And also, posterior babies are not that big of a deal because usually they turn in labor because contractions cause them to be pushed and turned. But with my contractions, he never was pushed or turned for some reason. He's being pushed down, but he was not turned. But I did not know any of this. And so finally I got in the tub. It felt so good. For a little while, you know, and then I started getting hot, so then they put like cold washcloths on my head and my neck, which felt so good as well. And so this is when my mother-in-law started filming. So I'll put a couple clips in here. I actually right now still have not even gone through those video clips, and so I'm really excited to see them. So I'll put in a few clips right now.
Amazing pressure, honey.
Really?
Yeah.
Can I get some water, like really?
More?
Can I get some new cold towels?
Mm-hmm. Cold for her.
Or it's just
Oh, you might find.
Check the Perfect. Nice job, Lily. Yeah.
Yeah, I was laboring in the tub for a while. At this point, time again was just getting so irrelevant. I literally thought I had only been laboring for like an hour, and it was 12 a.m. So time is just, it's like when you're in labor, like time is not even existent. My midwife had me like sitting on my butt, and then I really just like to be on all fours. So I really remember trying to be intentional about opening my legs, putting my knees out and my feet together, because that's a really good way to open up the pelvis and the hips. I was doing that. My husband was just holding onto my hand while I was having contractions, and at this point contractions were really intense that I was squeezing really hard on his hands. I would say the contractions were that intense before I got into the tub too, because he says that I was holding his hand really tight before like getting into the tub. But I was in the nursery, as you can see in the video, but yeah, the atmosphere was so nice. My midwife ended up putting lights under the birth pool, under the lining, so that was so pretty. She really thought that right as soon as I got in the tub, I would have him, which would have been the case, because at 1 a.m. I started pushing. My body just started involuntarily pushing. I could not control it. It was the craziest feeling, and there's really no way to describe it. Like, every time I would have a contraction, at the peak of the contraction, it, like, my body just pushed. When I was pushing, it didn't really feel like anything was happening, but my midwife said things were happening. You know, she could see him descending and stuff like that. And so I pushed for a while. I really don't know exactly how long, but from 1 a.m. to about 3 a.m. I was pushing. But again, time felt irrelevant. Then my midwife, after a while, was like, I think I need to check you because things don't seem to be progressing, and this was the first time she checked me. Also, when I started pushing, she told me to push. She told me to make poop because that's the best way. Like, if you feel like you have to poop, that's good. So I was doing that, and she asked me if pushing felt good, and I said no. And she was kind of like, that's weird, because usually when women start pushing, it feels good. They feel like, oh man, they're finally doing something. But to me, it didn't really feel good, because I couldn't really feel anything happening. I didn't really feel anything going, you know, descending or anything like that. It just kind of felt like I was pushing out a poop that wasn't coming out. It's like I was constipated or dry heaving. Like, my body was just dry heaving. And so then she checked me, and I don't even know, she didn't tell me what dilation I was at, but she realized there was a lip of cervix that was blocking him. And so I actually Googled it, because I wasn't very educated on lips of cervix. And I kept telling people about it, and I still didn't really understand it. And so I looked it up, and it says a lip of cervix, or more specifically an anterior cervical lip, refers to a situation during labor where the front edge of the cervix, the neck of the uterus, remains swollen and thick even though the rest of the cervix is fully dilated. Essentially, it's like a lip of tissue that's obstructing the baby's descent. And that makes so much sense. When I read that yesterday, I was like, that makes so much sense, because I was basically fully dilated. I was to an 8, and your body can be pushing at that point, because your body can dilate like from an 8 to a 10 in like 2 minutes. And so the fact that I had an anterior cervical lip, she was obviously caught off guard, and made a lot of sense why he wasn't coming out. And so she needed to move it out of the way, and she said there was a lot of cervical lip, and so she needed to move it out of the way because he couldn't come if it was being blocked. And so my cervix was super, super swollen because I had been pushing for like at that point 2 hours. Also, she thought that my bladder was full, so she tried to put a catheter in, and I couldn't go pee. But my downstairs area was super, super swollen that she couldn't even find the pee hole. So she tried to put it in, but she couldn't, and that was really painful. That was super painful, but I was just, you know, and everything that happened to me that was painful, I just tried to embrace it, because in my mind I was like, I let it happen, I will get some relief, or things will start happening. But obviously she tried and couldn't get it in, and so it was just really defeating. I think she tried to move my cervical lip in the tub, but I don't really remember for sure. But around 3-ish, 3:30, I ended up getting out of the tub and then going into the bathroom and sitting on the toilet. And they kind of wanted me to labor on the toilet for a little bit and then also try to pee. But because the toilet is the dilation station, it was so uncomfortable. I hated every second of that. And also, they were hearing his heart rate drop. And so this is kind of when things started going downhill. So they heard his heart rate drop while I was pushing. So every time I would push, his head would get pushed into that cervical lip. He was also anterior, so his head wasn't even in the right position. Labor and birth is a puzzle, and if the pieces aren't perfectly aligned, it's really hard to get the baby out. And so because he was posterior, because I was having an anterior cervical lip, those were two scenarios that were just clashing, and both of those are not great, and they were really not helping my situation. And so his head was being, he was coming down. He was, I don't even know where he was, but my midwife said he was low, but he couldn't get through. And so his heart rate was dropping. He was mad. And so they were telling me that in every contraction, just try not to push. So at this point, my contractions were a minute apart. I was in full labor mode. I was closing my eyes. I was breathing. I was trying everything. My midwife was really helping me to breathe during my contractions, which was so helpful. But when she realized that I shouldn't be pushing anymore because he was in distress, she really tried to help me to breathe through my contractions without pushing. But my body, every single contraction for hours, was pushing. My body would just push, and there was no way I could stop it. And so I would try every contraction. I was clenching my fist. I was clenching everything to try not to push, but it was just involuntary. I couldn't not. And so at the peak of the contraction, I had to push, but then after the peak, I would try to just breathe through it. I would just try to breathe through. But at some points, I would have back-to-back contractions, and I didn't really understand what was going on at that point. But now looking back, I was having back-to-back contractions. It was crazy. I remember at one point my midwife was saying that I was having them, and I didn't even really realize it. There's just so much going on. My body was so tired. So I was in the bathroom, sitting on the toilet. My assistant midwife, which I love her, she helped me try to breathe through my contractions, not push. I, at one point, put all of my weight on her. I was standing up, and I was going to get into the bathtub or into the shower, and I was having a contraction while I stood up, and I just put all my weight on her, and I was like, I'm so sorry. But looking back, that was such a sweet moment. She's just so sweet and just allowed me to just put all of my weight on her. I got into the shower. That felt good for a minute, and then of course I had a contraction, but I had to be on all fours. That was the only position that was somewhat comfortable. Any other position just was not nice, was not good. But I did end up getting into the bathtub, filling that up, and I was on my side, and that was okay, but honestly nothing was okay at that point. My body was just really going through a lot, and the fact that I knew that he wasn't like coming down and coming out with every contraction was what was really starting to make me not feel defeated, but just feel like, what is like gonna happen? Like, how is he gonna come out? Because I knew he was anterior or posterior, and I knew I had that cervical lip that wasn't moving, and they kept checking him, and he kept getting, his heart rate kept dropping when I would have a contraction. I was in the bathtub, or like in the bathroom, from like 3:30ish to like 4:30 or something like that. I remember getting out of the bathtub and seeing my midwife laying on the floor taking a nap, and I was like, why is she taking a nap? It's only been like an hour. In my head I thought that, but then I didn't realize it was literally in the middle of the night. And my husband was kind of taking a nap. He was having a hard time because I was in so much pain, and he really did not like seeing me in pain, and so he was trying to just take a nap. My mom and mother-in-law and my father-in-law were there, but they were just praying. They were literally praying for me the whole time. I went back into the bedroom at some point. I honestly don't even remember that at all, but my husband said I did go back to the bedroom. I don't remember what I did in there, what time it was that I went into the bedroom. I don't know if it was before getting into the bathroom or after. I think it was after. We went into this room. So we went into the second bedroom, and I was not planning on coming into the second bedroom at all. But because there's this daybed here, and the daybed is pretty low to the ground, they wanted me to do some forward-leaning inversions on this daybed, which is funny because this is literally where I was doing my forward-leaning inversions my whole pregnancy. I was literally doing these forward-leaning inversions, so basically my head was on the floor, my butt was in the air, during these super intense contractions that I would say were painful because my body was so swollen, my body was so tired, and I was pushing for so long that with every contraction, it felt like I was getting nowhere. And with every push, it just felt like I was pushing him into a brick wall. Yeah, I was doing forward-leaning inversions. I think I only did one. It was so painful, but they really wanted me to do that because those caused the baby to turn. And they thought like maybe if he would turn, you know, the cervical lip would move and he would come out. But he did not end up turning. I was at one point just on my back, and my midwife was trying to move the cervical lip. That was very painful. That was excruciating because it's not just that my body was having a contraction. It was literally that she was, as I was having a contraction, her hand was up there trying to move the cervical lip, and it was just really painful. But I really, again, embraced it because I just in my head knew if I could just let this happen, she could move it, and it could cause him to come out. There'd be so much relief afterwards, but she couldn't move it. And so then also with her listening to his heart rate, it kept dropping. There would be some positions where he'd be fine, and I would have a contraction and I would push and he'd be fine, and then there was other positions that he did not like. And so there was a lot of hope and then a lot of disappointment because there would be some times where she's like, oh, he's fine, he's happy, and then the next contraction he's not happy. And obviously when a baby is not happy and things like that happen, it is really concerning. And can be really scary. And so at one point I remember her saying, we really need to talk about going to the hospital because if he comes out, I'm scared that he might come out not alive and I would have to resuscitate him. And hearing that really was like, oh, I don't want to see that. I don't want to see my baby come out not alive. And so also at this point, my body was exhausted. I was exhausted. I was having contractions every minute for the past however long, since 1 a.m. and this was about 5 a.m., so 4 hours, and every contraction I was pushing. So for 4 hours I was pushing. And my body was so swollen. Before we decided to go to the hospital, she said, okay, this is your one last chance if you want to have this baby here. Push with everything you have. And so I was on my back. My legs were spread apart, and I pushed super hard. Just let it out. I just pushed so hard and nothing happened. Didn't feel anything happen. And she's like, all right, that's it. We gotta go. So obviously I had no plan, no intention on going to the hospital. I had nothing ready or prepared to leave the house. And so I left the house in a Depends diaper, my shoes, and my bathrobe. That's what I was looking like. And so we ended up going in my mother-in-law's car. She has a Honda Pilot, and so they put the seats down in the Pilot, and I was in the back of the car on my hands and knees with my midwife. That car ride was the most painful part of the whole birth, honestly. I mean, I wouldn't say that, because honestly, when she stuck her hand up me, that was really painful, and I was screaming bloody murder. Like, my whole neighborhood, I'm surprised no one came and knocked on the door, because I screamed so loud. And I told myself I would never scream in labor, but because this was a situation that it was not a natural thing, you know, it wasn't like I was screaming like that because he was coming out. It was because something was happening to me. I'm giving myself grace on that one. But anyway, that car ride was just so painful. It was about 9 minutes away, but every bump caused me to go into a contraction. Every turn, every stop, like, it was just horrible. This is just crazy. So we get to the hospital, and my husband goes in, and my midwife tells him to go get a wheelchair and get someone to help us. And she did call the hospital prior to us coming, so they knew we were coming. So, well, first, we couldn't find the entrance, and I was like, can we please find the entrance? Please, please. And at this point, I just needed relief. I was so tired. I was like, I'm okay with getting an epidural at this point. I'm okay with getting a C-section at this point, because I'm just in so much pain. And, like, in my mind, I'm like, if he's not coming out, then, like, just someone help me, you know? We got there, he goes in, and he comes out with no wheelchair, but this lady, and this lady, my midwife is like, where the heck is a wheelchair? Like, we need a wheelchair right now. We have someone in labor has a fetal distress. Like, I can't wait. And so we end up going on this elevator. Well, this elevator did not lead to the labor and delivery unit, so we knew we had to be on the 5th floor, but that was not the right elevator. So we get back down, and I'm literally like hunched over my midwife. It was so uncomfortable to stand because it was so swollen down there. This girl that was with my husband came out when we came out of the elevator. She had a wheelchair finally, so I got on the wheelchair, but I couldn't even sit on the wheelchair. I was like standing on the wheelchair basically, and I looked so crazy, but obviously I didn't care. Like, I could care less what anyone was thinking. I was literally in a robe. Like, wow. So this lady tries to give my midwife a tutorial on how to use a wheelchair, and she's like, we don't have time for this, we gotta go. And so she literally like snatches the wheelchair and takes me. Like, this part is honestly so funny to me because I was so like in such a different world, but I just, looking back on it, it probably looked crazy. So she's running down the hallway asking where this unit is, where the labor and delivery unit is. And there's like people like yelling from across the hall, like, take a left, take a right, whatever. And so we finally get there, and they were waiting for us. There was a team waiting for us. I'm gonna tell you guys, the whole time, my whole birth, my whole labor, I was not at all scared. I was at peace, and I knew, like, I did not want to be at the hospital, like, you know, prior to going into labor. Like, that was the number one thing I didn't want to do, was go into the hospital. I did not want to be in those bright lights. I did not want to be having people talk and, you know, have all this surrounding, like, chaos going on. But I was in my labor mode that I blocked everything out. Like, I didn't open my eyes. I didn't even know what the room looked like, and I was counting my breaths. And so, though I knew that I didn't want to be there, I refused to let myself get to a place of anxiety and stress. And I just trusted my midwife so much that I knew, like, if I was at the hospital, like, that I needed to be here. And I never was scared that I was gonna die. I never was scared that he was gonna die, honestly. Like, I just trusted the Lord. And it's funny because before giving birth, my word for my birth was surrender, which in my mind, I wanted it to be surrender because I was going to surrender the sensations. I was going to surrender the contractions. I was going to surrender the feelings. But it was literally like surrendering my plan. I can't even describe it to you guys other than like it was just the peace of God. Like truly, like God's hand was over me. It was like a bubble of protection over me. Like truly, I knew like anxiety causes everything to be worse. Fear causes everything to be worse. And so I don't remember ever having those feelings of anxiety or fear. And at this point too, like I knew I was at the hospital. So also I was like, I'm going to get some relief. I'm either going to get an epidural or get a C-section. So I'm like, at least I know I'll have some relief. And like, I was okay with it at that point. When we got there, it was 7 a.m. or it was like 6:30 a.m. And of course at 7 is shift change. So we get the one team and they were amazing and we really liked them. And then at 7 a.m. the shift changes and the first team said that they weren't too worried. They did end up putting a catheter in me and then they ended up putting a monitor inside me to check him, which was crazy. So there was like 2 things just hanging out of me. Very weird feeling. I didn't even know what it looked like, but it felt very weird and very uncomfortable. And those things, like, of course, was uncomfortable, but, like, again, I was just in such, like, a different mindset that I didn't, the pain of the contractions and of, like, what my midwife was doing to me, like, nothing else compared. I was just, like, anything at this point, I didn't even really care. Pain, what is that? Don't even know. This one doctor said that he wasn't too concerned and that I was just going to get an epidural to kind of get things, to give me some relief, and so honestly, in my head, though, because I knew that he was posterior and I had that cervical lip, I was just kind of feeling at that point that I just wanted a C-section because I just didn't know how much longer. Like, in my head, I'm like, well, is it still going to take a long time even with the epidural? Like, an epidural would be good because then I wouldn't feel anything anymore. But, like, how much longer would it take for him to come out? Because he still would have to turn. Or, like, are they just going to cut and like get him out, like do forceps, like something like that? Like what's their plan? So I was waiting for the epidural. The anesthesiologist came in, like they were just talking about doing the epidural. That felt like forever. Like being in that room felt like forever. But honestly, I wasn't even in there for that long because there was just so many moving parts. There were so many people talking and doing so many different things, and like it felt like an eternity. Also, because it was an emergency, I didn't have like a doctor, so they didn't have any of my like background information or anything like that, so they had to wait to get some of that before they could do anything. I didn't even have my wallet or anything, so I didn't have my insurance, but my husband had his wallet, thankfully, so he gave like our insurance information and stuff like that. I had another contraction. I think my labor, I don't even know what was going on at this point because I felt like it was kind of digressing, or like it was going like reverse, because I didn't even feel like I was having contractions as much anymore. I remember them asking me to sign things and I literally couldn't. I would like physically was unable to sign things, and they were like, just scribble. And so like I literally like held the pen and like scribbled like this because I had to like they had to have my consent to do things. So they finally got like my information from my midwife, and then they were gonna do the epidural, but then I guess they heard his heart rate drop again. I don't really know what the transition was from doing the epidural to doing the C-section, but I just remember they were like, all right, we need to do a C-section. So they were trying to explain to me, like, you know, you're gonna get a C-section, do you know what that is? You know, getting my consent and all this stuff. And at this point I was totally fine with it because I just wanted relief, and I knew that things weren't going to happen naturally at this point, and that he was in distress and he was not happy, and so I was like, I'm just gonna let it happen. Of course, this was last case scenario. Of course, like this was not what I wanted at all, but in the moment I was totally fine with it. Again, my eyes were closed like literally the whole time. I remember getting wheeled into the room. The lights were so bright, like even through my eyes being closed, and they had to do the epidural. And this was crazy though, because I remember they told me like if I flinched during the epidural, it could be really bad. But I knew I was having contractions every 1 minute, and again, every contraction I was still pushing. there was not one contraction during this whole 5 hours from 1 a.m. to now it's 8 a.m. So that's actually 7 hours that I did not push during a contraction. And so I remember telling my body, like asking the Lord, I was like, please don't let me have a contraction while they're doing the epidural, like please, because literally when I have a contraction I have to push and my body just like pushes. And so I remember they did the epidural, couldn't even tell you if that was painful or not because I didn't even care, and literally I didn't have a contraction, and it took like, it felt like a long time that they were doing the epidural, or at least that I had to be still. And I just remember I didn't have a contraction and didn't have to push, and I was like, thank you, Lord. And so then I don't even remember how long it took for it to get into my system, but I remember I laid down and finally things just felt good, and I was like so happy. I was just telling the doctors and the nurses like, thank you for taking care of me. And there was this one nurse, I forget her name, I think it was like Jenny, it started with a G or a J, and she was so sweet. She was an older lady, and she just was so sweet to me and talking to me, and they started to cut me open and stuff like that. And Jack came in, and that was really a sad and special moment because I was just so emotional. The fact that I finally didn't have pain, emotions just started flooding, and he came in, I heard them say, okay, you can let the dad in. And he sat by me, and I started crying. I told him I was sorry that he had to watch all of this and that it was kind of scarring for him. He was crying as well. Really, I did not want him to have a fear of birth. That was my biggest thing, was like, I did not want him to be afraid of birth. And the fact that like he had to witness this, I felt like now he was never gonna want me to do a natural birth again, or like want me to have another kid again because of the experience. And so we've obviously talked about it and processed it since then, but that was just what was going through my head, is like, he's just like so scarred. He got in there at 8 a.m. and he was born at 8:20, so it took about 20 minutes for them to get him out. The fact that I was sitting there though and knew that my whole stomach was cut open was kind of like, I just had to stop thinking about it because it like grossed me out. I was like, oh my gosh. I remember looking up and seeing all the drugs that was going inside my body, and that was just really devastating to me because that was exactly what I did not want, was drugs, was any sort of intervention. But at the same time, I just had to surrender it because it's what had to happen. And my midwife was really being my advocate because, well, she knew my birth plan. She tried to advocate for me at the hospital, but there's only so much they'll listen to. She told my husband that I had to get a C-section. So the fact that she was the one saying that was like, okay, like, I trust her, obviously, and I know that this is what has to be done. He was born at 8:20. He was 6 pounds, and I was in labor for almost 24 hours, but yeah. So the biggest thing, looking back, that I'm sad about is that I didn't get any of my post-birth things that I wanted. I didn't get him immediately on me. I didn't get delayed cord clamping. He got like, you know, things scrubbed off of him. He got like his head scrubbed and stuff like that after. I didn't get to do skin to skin immediately after, you know, stuff like that. So like, that's still stuff that I look back and I am sad about, but it's okay, because he's here and he's healthy and he's, you know, perfect. And he cried right away when he was born, which is amazing because from the fact that my midwife said that she might have to resuscitate him, the fact that he was crying was amazing. And he had a huge cone head, which is funny because he was born obviously through C-section, but because he was being pushed for literally like 7 hours, he had such a big cone head, which is funny because it looked like he had been born vaginally, but he had not been. My husband got him right away. They said they think he looked like my husband, but we think he looks like me, but with dark hair, which my husband has black hair. So anyway, while I was being stitched up, I got super, super nauseous. I felt like I had to throw up, and so I started like dry heaving, and like literally I was like, And sorry, yeah, I was doing that, and they were trying to sew me up, and they were like, okay, we need you to, like, if you feel like you're gonna throw up, like, tell us, because it's really important that you don't, like, your muscles, your stomach doesn't contract, or else it could be, like, deadly. And I was like, I can't, like, control it. So I ended up, like, telling them every, like, 5 seconds, like, I gotta throw up, and nothing ever came out. It was just, like, dry heaving, but all that medication and stuff like that just made me super nauseous, and I kind of felt nauseous for, like, a couple, like, hours. If I was stood up, I was nauseous, but I laid down. I was, like, laying down and, like, you know, sitting for days. My husband's probably about to come in.
Where is he? Oh, he's with you?
Yeah, of course he
Hi,
is.
buddy.
Tell them what you think about my birth.
It was interesting. It went from a lot of highs to a lot of lows.
Yep.
But they're both healthy, so that's all that matters.
Yep. Do you want to take him?
Sure. Well, actually, I gotta make meatballs, so I'll be back.
Meatballs?
I'm hungry.
Oh.
I had lunch from Hungry Phil.
They gave him to me finally, and we did skin to skin. I did skin to skin with him, like, the whole time I was in the hospital, because I've done so much research just about birth in general, and I knew so much about the medical industry relating to birth. One thing that I did hear about is that if you do end up having a C-section, that you should do skin to skin as much as you can, because obviously, like, if they're not putting on you right away, or, like, whatever, it's just very important. So I literally did skin to skin, like, the whole time. When I finally got him and we got into the room, they helped me breastfeed, or help him latch, and he latched right away, which was a huge answered prayer. I was like, you know what, if I can't have the birth that I want, I at least want him to have a great breastfeeding experience, and I want to have a great breastfeeding experience. And so, yeah, he latched right away. I won't talk too much about breastfeeding or postpartum, because I'm going to make whole other separate videos about that, about, like, the first 5 days of breastfeeding, the first 5 days postpartum, stuff like that. So I don't want to go into too much detail about that, but he did latch right away, and my colostrum was pretty heavy. Like, I felt like he was pretty full a lot. He ended up not even really losing, like, any birth weight. He lost a little bit, which is obviously very normal, but he gained it right back, like, within a couple of days. I have a great milk supply, which I'm so thankful for. Like, again, I'm just thankful that I didn't have the birth experience that I wanted. Like, breastfeeding is great, and it has been just such a blessing. How I am feeling about my birth now, and what I want people to know about this experience, is that, one, I look back at my birth and it is not traumatic for me at all. I know too many women that they have one expectation of their birth, and then something like this happens and they're absolutely devastated, they're traumatized, and they go into another pregnancy and another birth with the feeling that they just want redemption, and that they're scared to give birth again. But that is not my case at all. Though it was exactly the opposite delivery that I wanted, the labor itself was everything that I wanted. I was able to have a very quick labor from 7:30 a.m. to 1 a.m. when I started pushing. If everything would have gone completely smooth and the puzzle pieces would have been fit together perfectly, I believe he could have been born around 2 or 3 or something like that. My water broke by itself, and I was able to feel that. I was able to listen to my Christian hypnobirthing and listen to worship music and have an atmosphere that was perfect. And my husband was able to help me with my contractions, and my midwives were just amazing, and I was able to stay home until the very, very end. And I have beautiful pictures of my labor, which I'll put right here. It was everything that I wanted. I mean, just the fact that it went so smoothly until the very end is what I'm holding on to. And after giving birth, the first couple of days were really rough mentally because obviously, like, I was really sad. Even just thinking about other people that gave birth vaginally, seeing things on my Instagram, like, I follow a lot of birth Instagram people, and so even looking at that was really hard. But now it's not hard to look at those anymore. It's not hard for me to talk about it. It's because I just know, like, I will get redemption, but I also don't want to think of it that way because I don't want him to grow up knowing, like, oh, mom, like, hated the day I was born, or hated my birth story, or hated that, this or that or the other. Like, that's not at all what it is. It's more just, I've felt the sensations of labor. I've felt what it's like, and so I just know, like, Lord willing, if I have more kids, like, I'll have another opportunity to do it again. I told the Lord in the hospital that I did not want to be that woman that hated my labor, hated my birth, and was traumatized by it. I wanted to come out of this experience positive and at peace. And so I really believe that he gave that to me. Though I hated being in the hospital was the worst part. After the birth, like, just being in the hospital, the nurses were amazing, actually, though. I had great nurses. I never had one nurse that I hated or that was unkind to me.
I can take them now if you want.
There is something beautiful about the medical field, and I really believe the Lord has given us the medical industry for things like what I experienced. I have no idea what would have happened if I didn't go to the hospital, or the hospital wasn't even existent, and I don't know if he would have been born alive or not alive. I don't know if he would have been really messed up. I don't know if I would have been really messed up. I don't even know how he would have come out. Like, truthfully, my midwife was, like, she's very experienced. She's been a midwife for many, many years. And the fact that she had me go to the hospital, just, as I said, I trusted her so much that I knew that there was something wrong. The one side says, don't ever go to the hospital. There's never a time that you should go to the hospital. And then there's the other side saying, don't ever do a home birth. Don't ever, do natural. Like, just come to the hospital. That's so dangerous. But I think that we should meet in the middle. So hopefully, if you are more like-minded like me, holistically or naturally, maybe this could help you really maybe shift your thinking a little bit, because I started getting into that mindset that, the medical industry was horrible and is bad and is evil, and that we should never go to the hospital ever. Whereas I had to, and that really made me swallow my pride and think differently. And I also didn't want to hate my birth experience. I'm sure some of you are wondering, maybe you're not wondering at all, but I'm just going to tell you right now that I still plan on doing another home birth whenever the Lord blesses us with another child. I am not scared of birth still. Even with this all happening to me, I am excited to do it again. I'm eager to do it again. And the fact that I've been through it already, I know now what it feels like, what it looks like. I don't know what it feels like to give birth vaginally, which it's still something that I am a little sad about, but having a C-section was great because I was able to pee and poop without really any discomfort. It was a little uncomfortable the first time because I was still super swollen, but because I didn't have him vaginally, I didn't really have any problem. I still really am excited to experience that. That's the one thing that I didn't really get to experience in the birth process, obviously. My midwife is still going to be my midwife. I still trust her 100%, and I am sad that my pregnancy is over because I don't get to see her as much anymore. But right after giving birth, right after having the C-section, she was there. She came the day after he was born. She visited me twice in the hospital. She was there just the whole time. They came back after when I was in the hospital, and they cleaned up the whole house. It looked like I had never even given birth or like labored here. I mean, I think that's everything, guys. I'm sad that I didn't get my birth on video. Obviously, we could not record in the C-section room. So that was one thing that I really just wanted, was to have my birth on video. If you watched till the very end, God bless you, thank you. I am very excited to be back on YouTube. I took like a month off. It's been exactly a month from yesterday that he was born. I'm not sure even when I'm going to post this. It's going to be a while because I'm going to have to edit it and stuff, but I'm excited to get back into just being on social media. I really haven't even posted a lot on my Instagram, but I do post more on there and update you more on there. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, if you have not already, it's _Lily_Allen. So make sure to follow me on there. I love you guys, and I hope to see you in my next video. And if you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe, because I have a lot more videos coming out soon that I'm excited about, talking about just motherhood, postpartum, the Lord, and all that stuff. So see you guys in my next video. Bye.